Good evening, Bear Nation. How is everybody? Highland Hunter, shalom. We'll give the room, a couple of minutes to fill up with people. We'll have some nice, polite banter back and forth, and then we're going to dive into this ruling that from the Supreme Court that Oklahoma remains a tribal reservation, which is interesting for those of us that are A, tribal, and B, in Oklahoma. So, Free Spirit, good evening, sister. K.R. Killia. Shaloha. Andy on Guam. Shalom. Michael. Shalom. Nomada Smile Seeker. Nice. You know, I'm semi-famous on the internet in part for saying things like Texas isn't as Texas as it thinks it is. And that's true. But apparently, Oklahoma isn't as Oklahoma as it thinks it is? Question mark? Hunter Seeker, shalom, brother. Isn't that correct, Maurice? That is correct. Lucky Luciano. So, I'm going to, J.A. Dudley, shalom, yodels. It's nice to see ya. I like yodels. They're not quite as good as Swiss cake rolls, but I do like a good yodel every now and then. That's right, Big Smooth. Okay. So, I'm going to read a little bit to you from Politico, which, is there a news source that doesn't have a bias these days? No. We at least are happy to admit ours. We are conservative libertarians that worship the Most High. Amen? Amen. No, Ashley Storms, it's not. We would never let that happen. All right, so from Politico.com, under the heading of legal, headline, Justices Rule, Swath of Oklahoma Remains Tribal Reservation. So let's read. No, Jacob, they are. They're showing up. Let's read this and see what it says. Of course, it's copied from the Associated Press, timestamp 9 July 2020, 10:52 a.m. Eastern. The Supreme Court ruled Thursday that a large chunk of eastern Oklahoma remains an American Indian reservation, a decision that state and federal officials have warned could throw Oklahoma into chaos. The Supreme Court's 5-4 decision, written by Justice Neil Gorsuch, means that Oklahoma prosecutors lack the authority to pursue criminal cases against American defendants in parts of Oklahoma that include most of Tulsa, the state's second largest city. Let's repeat that particular paragraph. The court's 5-4 decision, written by Justice Neil Gorsuch, means that Oklahoma prosecutors lack the authority to pursue criminal cases against American Indian defendants in parts of Oklahoma that include most of Tulsa, the state's second largest city. Now, we have gotten, let me not exaggerate here, a metric effing butt ton of emails from y'all in the last few hours. Bear, what are you gonna do? And we'll get back to the article in a minute. But my first thought was Vester Dillon out there fighting crime. What's up, Air Force retired? My first thought was I don't know, build a massive whiskey still, start manufacturing machine guns? Maybe an old-timey bathtub gin underground bar somewhere? Sky's the limit, right? Maybe I could legitimately start a cult now. I get so much crap from the internet anyway. Why not? We'll just actually start one. You know what I mean? Let's do it. We're here. We're here now, right? A1P, shalom, brother. Shalom. And then I did a little bit more research because I was Stryker Brigade? Not out of the question. We're on the res now, right? This is how you do it. We started some tribal police. We get some training from DHS. We get DOD to slip us some backdoor funds. Boom, next thing you know, MRAPs, machine guns, Stryker Brigade. Welcome to the Bear Nation, right? We just do one of these. We get one of these things going, one of these. And I can say this, by the way. Yeah, in a casino, exactly, Lucky Luciano. Exactly. We'll get into all the vice businesses, protection rackets. We'll start our own bear mafia. It'll be great. And I can say this because I am 200 256 times more Native American than Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. Repeat, 256 times as Native American as she is. So I guess I get to say this. So this is the plan. This is the plan. This is what I was thinking in my mind. Perfect. This is the perfect opportunity. We can literally have a bear nation. Yes, Danielle, we could do this, right? We could literally have the bear nation. Did you 23andMe? I am 23andMe. No, we have this thing called a family genealogy that goes back to 1480. Yeah, I think it's 1480. It starts in England, but that's another story for another time. Actually, Wales on a whole nother story. By the way, not so Texas anymore Ranger is the whiskey we're drinking this evening. Grow some bear weed. No, I've told y'all, if we had weed on the bear res, this would be terrible because I'm not good at weed. I'm very, very, very bad at weed. Now, let's continue. Back to the article. On the far end of the quote, on the far end of the Trail of Tears was a promise. Forced to leave their ancestral lands in Georgia and Alabama, the Creek Nation received assurances that their new lands in the West would be secure forever. I'm Cherokee, Choctaw, and Creek. Bear Nation war cry, it sounds like this. That's the war cry. Today, we are asked whether the lands these treaties promised remains an Indian reservation for purposes of federal criminal law. Because Congress has not said otherwise, we hold the government to its word, Gorsuch wrote in a decision joined by the court's liberal members. So essentially, what's going on here? Vester Dillon, that's right, we fight the best crimes the Cherokees and the Irish put together. It's like, not very good at drinking, but we like it a lot. Perfect. Zooted suit, yes, you might have. Mark, I can't say that, we're on YouTube. So, essentially, back in like in 1866, the court rendered a decision that Congress then never Hebrovo that was never quite clarified when Oklahoma became a state. So essentially what Gorsuch is saying is until the federal government clears up whether or not this area is a reservation, it's a reservation. Tribesman shalom, brother. The court's ruling back to the article, casts doubt on hundreds of convictions won by local prosecutors, but Gorsuch suggested optimism. Quote, in reaching our conclusion about what the law demands of us today, we do not pretend to foretell the future, and we proceed well aware of the potential for cost and conflict around jurisdictional boundaries, especially ones that have gone unappreciated for so long. But it is unclear why pessimism should rule the day. With the passage of time, Oklahoma and its tribes have proven they can work successfully together as partners, he wrote. Oklahoma's 3 U.S. attorneys quickly released a joint statement expressing confidence that, quote, tribal, state, local, and federal law enforcement will work together to continue providing exceptional public safety under the ruling. Janadev Chowdhury, ambassador to the Muskogee or Creek Nation and a former Chief Justice of the tribe's Supreme Court, said that the state's argument that such a ruling would cause legal havoc in the state was overblown. Quote, all the sky is falling narratives were dubious at best, said Chowdhury. This would only apply to a small subset of Native Americans committing crimes within the boundaries. This case didn't change ownership of any land. It didn't impact the prosecutions of non-Indians in any way. All it did was bring clarity to jurisdictional questions regarding the border, and it enhanced the Creek Nation's ability as a sovereign nation to work with other sovereign interests to protect people and to work in common interests. Yes, Lucius, yes you are. Tommy Salter, shalom, Resbro, shalom. Forrest Taduhanipa, a Comanche Nation citizen and attorney who specializes in tribal law, said the ruling's short-term implications are largely confined to the criminal context and that serious felonies committed by Native Americans in part of eastern Oklahoma will be subject to federal jurisdiction. Now, remember this part about working together. Local, regional, tribal, state, federal law enforcement authorities. Remember that, because we're going somewhere with this. Back to the article. Quote, in the long term, outside of the criminal context, there may be some minor changes in civil law, he said. The majority opinion points out assistance with homeland security, historical preservation, schools, highways, clinics, housing, and nutrition programs as possible changes. The Creek Nation will also have greater jurisdiction over child welfare cases involving tribal members. So, all right, so collusion or cooperation would be a better word amongst all these different entities in the matters of minor changes in civil law. There would be coordinated assistance with homeland security, historical preservation, schools, highways, clinics, housing, and nutrition programs, as well as possible changes. The Creek Nation will also have greater jurisdiction over child welfare cases involving tribal members. So essentially what it's saying is that tribal nation members within the area of the tribal nation will be subject to the authority of the tribal nation. In conjunction with, my wife is a quarter Cherokee. Good job, Tom. In conjunction with all these other authorities already. Now, here's kind of the crux of the issue. The case, which was argued by telephone in May because of the coronavirus pandemic, revolved around an appeal by an American Indian who claimed that state courts had no authority to try him for a crime committed on reservation land that belonged to the Muskogee Creek Nation. So this dude was a scumbag, and we're going to get to the scumbagginess of the scumbag here in a minute. He did some scumbag stuff, and he was arrested, he was tried, and he was convicted. And his lawyer said, well, the federal authorities and the state authorities don't have the state authorities don't have the authority to try this man because he's an American Indian. And so this appeal process went all the way from the state of Oklahoma to the federal Supreme Court of the United States, as I understand it. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on YouTube, never have. But I'm trying to figure all this out, okay? So this scumbag did scumbag stuff, appealed all the way to the federal Supreme Court, and then the federal Supreme Court said, actually, Danny boy, don't say that. Don't say that. That'll get you in trouble. The Supreme Court said, actually, now that we look at it, it turns out that that land is still technically a reservation. No, Sasquatch. If anything, it means that my homestead just got way bigger, like only by a few million acres. Which we'll come to next. The reservation once encompassed 3 million acres, or 12,100 square kilometers, including most of Tulsa. So essentially, I'm now rich. The Supreme Court, with 8 justices taking part, failed to reach a decision last term when it reviewed a federal appeals court ruling in a separate case that threw out a state murder conviction and death sentence. In that case, the appeals court said the crime occurred on land assigned to the tribe before Oklahoma became a state. Remember this. In that case, the appeals court said the crime occurred on land assigned to the tribe before Oklahoma became a state, and Congress never clearly eliminated the Creek Nation reservation it created in 1866. So because essentially a way to look at this is we have so many laws that there were laws that said this piece of land belonged to these people, and then that piece of land which was on a territory which became a state, that thing belongs to these people, never went away when this territory became a state. So now that state doesn't have jurisdiction on that land because, good evening, because it existed before the state authority existed. So do your votes no? Are y'all not tracking? Are y'all not paying attention? Pay attention. Don't get caught up in the details. The whole point of this thing is not to get caught up in the hype. Because if we get caught up in the hype, we, the Bear Nation, now has a 3 million acre reserve that's gonna have, you know, bathtub gin and casinos and machine guns and MRAPs and strikers, and probably we have to have some kind of air support. Because that's what's happening in my mind, but that's not the actuality of what's going on here. Back to the article. The case the Supreme Court justices decided Thursday involved 71-year-old Jimcy McGirt, who is a scumbag and who is serving, oh, the article doesn't say that. I said that. Who is a scumbag and is serving a 500-year prison sentence for molesting a child. Just so that we're all tracking here, the child was 4 years old. And if Jimcy McGirt was here, near where I am, all y'all people that like to bitch about the Torah would be clapping because I'd be dragging a knife across his jugular, because we keep that nonsense outside the camp. Oklahoma state courts rejected his argument that his case does not belong in Oklahoma state courts and that federal prosecutors should instead handle his case. McGirt could potentially be retried in federal court, as could Patrick Murphy, who was convicted of killing a fellow tribe member in 1999 and sentenced to death. But Murphy would not face the death penalty in federal court for a crime in which prosecutors said he mutilated the victim and left him to bleed to death on the side of a county road about 80 miles southeast of Tulsa. Following the ruling, the state of Oklahoma issued a joint statement with the Muskogee Creek Nation, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole nations in which they vowed to work together on an agreement to address any unresolved jurisdictional issues raised by the decision. Quote, "The nations and the state are committed to ensuring that Jimcy McGirt, Patrick Murphy, and all other offenders face justice for the crimes for which they are accused," the statement read. "We have a shared commitment to maintaining public safety and long-term economic prosperity for the nations and Oklahoma." So, it actually has nothing to do with the election, William. Pay attention. What this is that a scumbag did scumbag things, and his lawyer made the argument that the state of Oklahoma that arrested him, tried him, and convicted him, no Major Ken, I get paid already and not by the tribes. What this is, let me recap here, is a scumbag did scumbag things. And he was arrested, he was tried, and he was convicted in the state of Oklahoma for being a scumbag. His attorney appealed on the grounds that the state of Oklahoma did not have the jurisdictional authority to try him in the first place because the crimes took place on reservation land that existed before Oklahoma existed. The reservation was established in 1866. Oklahoma went from a territory to a state after 1866. Therefore, tribal authority in this region supersedes Oklahoma state authority in this region, as I understand it. I'm not an attorney. But all that being said, that's sure as hell what it sounds like. So now what is being said is that, okay, if Oklahoma state authority does not apply because of this massive oversight when Oklahoma became a state, apparently on the part of the federal Congress, from what I'm reading, that in the meanwhile, the tribes, and the feds will work together. The tribe and the Department of Homeland Security will work together to make sure that scumbags like that continue to be punished accordingly. That's what this says. Just so we're all on the same page here, that's what this says. In so many words, that's what it says. That's why I felt compelled to read this ridiculous Politico article to you and to do this little talk together so that we could have a little bit of dialogue, so that you understand this is about 150, 160-year-old jurisdictional issues and making sure that scumbags continue to be tried and jailed and or executed appropriately. So, in the meanwhile, I have several brethren that are law enforcement officers, including in the state of Oklahoma, and I reached out to some of them and I said, dude, what does this even mean? And they're like, frankly, at this point, we don't know. It's brand new. So as we get more updates on this, we'll continue to explain it to you to the best of our ability. But really what it means is if you're a Native American in a certain area of Oklahoma, you fall under tribal authority rather than the state of Oklahoma authority. Now, in Oklahoma, Native Americans represent about 15% of the population. Unfortunately, it does not mean that we get a casino, bathtub gin, machine guns, striker brigade, A-10s, some AWACS. I would really like some AWACS. Yeah, just not working. CH-53s, anything else. It's not looking that way. It does not look like Bear Nation has acquired 3 million acres of territory in the last few hours. It's actually the opposite of that. It's shining light on the fact that there was a jurisdictional oversight and making sure that since state authority, at least for the moment, cannot address this jurisdictional oversight, federal authority will do so until this is rectified. And it actually, if you're into the idea of sovereignty, it actually puts control back in the hands of the tribal entities that were there in the first place. So if you're liberty-minded, which I am, knowing what I know about it right now, reserving the right to change my mind at any moment, because I can, based upon truth as I understand it, this is not necessarily a bad thing. As long as scumbags continue to go to jail, I don't care. As long as we're all in agreement that we drag knives across the throats of perverts, I don't care. If it returns power to the people that are closest to the situation on the ground, cool. As long as it doesn't create long-term ramifications for law enforcement to do their jobs in Oklahoma, I'm cool with it. And I can certainly see how that would happen. But it's going to be tricksy. It's going to be tricksy in the near future. So that, to the best of my understanding, is what is going on with this. So, yeah, there you go. Go, brah. Shalom, Andrew Barnes. Yes, Carrie, it's very interesting times. And, you know, you bring that up. I was texting with the head dance monkey in charge. Cross-deputized in short class. Roger that, man. That's probably the way to do that. Concrete Haiti, shalom, brother. I was texting with the head dance monkey in charge earlier. And essentially, we're like, what does this even mean, Benjamin Barnes? What does it even mean? And it's like, macro, what I see this as is this is just another indicator of Rome burning. And what I mean by that, Robert McCandless, is that vested authority in existing structures seems to be falling by the wayside. Yeah, Mad Kelt, no bathtub gin. Sorry, bro. You can't have any anyway. But coffee, we got you, bro. We got you. And I did just get some blackberry jam from Sister Kate, so you can have some of that too. Yes. I don't know if it's vulcanizing. I think you mean balkanizing, because vulcanizing is not what you think that it is. But balkanizing. So we are all screwed. Get tanks. I mean, if we could get tanks, that'd be fine. So, anywho, in the macro, I see it as a Rome is burning indicator. In the micro, what does it actually mean? Unfortunately, Bear Nation, as a recap, we don't have a 3 million acre Bear Nation reservation. No machine guns. Yankee, no machine guns, man.
What about a cannon?
Shut up with the damn cannon.
It's only black.
So, thank you for the cucumbers. These are lovely cucumbers brought to me by my wife, procured from the garden. And with that, I gotta go. We gotta do dinner, and I think we're going to do a Patreon exclusive live stream tonight. We shall see. So, in any event, thank y'all, Bear Nation. We appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. Shalom.